What's up, everybody? I'm Jason, and welcome back to A Point in Focus, the official podcast of the Points in Focus YouTube channel and pointsinfocus.com. So this will be the first episode that I do for 2025. Hopefully, I will be doing more of these this year, but I don't know. But we're going to talk about a couple of things today's episode. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the channel, content-wise, my plans for the channel, etc., including these podcasts. Second of all, I want to talk real briefly. If you are a creator or a creative person or a video shooter and you are thinking or looking at, and sort of in the, we'll say the middle range, I want to talk about Nvidia's newest video cards, the RTX 5000 series, or the codename Blackwell cards. And then I want to talk about a project that I'm considering doing. I haven't made a decision on it yet, so I want to talk about it a little bit, get some feedback through the comments, etc. for, you guys, if you're interested, and what your thoughts would be. So let me start by talking a little bit about the channel and my plans for this year, the coming year, etc. My plans for the main content. So if you're a new subscriber to the channel or a longtime subscriber to the channel, I have 4 major projects or series of videos that are running. I'm going to call them projects. My R5 tips and tricks, my R5C tips and tricks, my R5 Mark II tips and tricks, and my, I'm calling it the video and image fundamentals, where I'm talking about video compression formats and all of the kind of technical under the cover engineering stuff that goes into video formats and shooting and recording video. So those are the 4 series that I have running. Some have been running for several years now. The last one, the video image fundamentals, I tried to start, or I wanted to actually finish last year. I started it last year and never got near, or didn't get nearly as far with it as I was hoping to, as fast as I wanted to. At any rate, for those 4 series, I intend to continue doing them. Even though I have an R5 Mark II, I am not done talking about the R5. I am not done talking about the R5C. I shoot all of my video on the R5C. In fact, this is being shot, the podcast is being shot on my R5C. It's simply, in my opinion, a vastly better video camera for the video that I shoot, at least, than even the R5 Mark II is. But my plan is to continue to work on those or produce content on those. Now, 2025, January, February, March is starting off very R5 Mark II heavy. I have a ton of content that I have put out over these 3 months, the first quarter really, that is very much R5 Mark II, and specifically R5 Mark II autofocus focused. Which I guess leads me to talking about the sort of next point that I wanted to bring up, talking about the channel and content, which is how I get the content or come up with the content that I am producing. Because this has a lot to do with how things are going to be organized, distributed, etc. And it's worth at least having, if you are a frequent viewer, or you're like waiting for the R5C stuff to come back and you're thinking, oh, he's stopped caring about the R5C or whatever. That's not true at all. The way I produce my content comes from sort of 2 focuses. So first of all, if I see a lot of questions in the comments on one or several of my videos asking about a certain feature, or how you do something, or how something is handled in the camera, then that will be prioritized. Well, I won't say prioritized, but that goes sort of to the top of the list of things that I'm going to shoot. So people start asking, or I see a lot of people asking about how to change a specific setting, or how to get a specific lens to work, or why the autofocus doesn't do something, then that kind of gets ticked up into there's questions about that. People are not sure how this works or why this works, and so I should do something to investigate it. That obviously doesn't produce all of the content that is on this channel. So the second major source of content or direction for content creation, or that I'm working on, is what I'm trying to figure out. So I got my R5 Mark II last year, just when everybody else got their first R5 Mark IIs when they were released. There is a ton of new functionality in the camera. There is a ton of changes in the functionality in the camera. And trying to sort through and understand that is a big source of what I use to, consider or work on towards content. So this first quarter of 25, I have been talking a lot about the autofocus system on the R5 Mark II because there are a lot of changes there, and there's a lot that I have been trying to wrap my head around in terms of what the new settings are, what they do, etc. And I've got more in the works, planned out for that. It's not done. Like, there's still a lot more to look at, talk about, and really dig into to understand the autofocus system. On top of that, I've had several videos scheduled or I've shot for this month that are not specifically R5 tips and tricks. And so if you are somebody who came to this channel and you were, say, R5 Mark II tips and tricks, and that's what you were looking at, hey, you look and you see, oh, wow, this guy is posting all these things for my camera. And your expectation is that this is the R5 Mark II tips and tricks channel. It is not the R5 Mark II tips and tricks channel. It's a big part of what I'm going to be doing in the next year because it's a big part of what I'm going to be shooting with in the next year and what I'm going to be shooting with going forward. But I also look at things that are interesting to me, that have a point that I need to dig into or deal with. So in January, I think it was, or maybe early February, I had a video talking about how to do network recycle bins in Windows. Why? Because it was something that I spent a month, not strictly on, but for the better part of a month off and on, I was working on this, and that was the summary of all of the work that I had done into that to put it out there. Now, that video isn't doing terribly well, not that I expected it to at all, and that's not really a primary focus for me. So I know there's a lot of, I mean, I like it when videos do well. I like it when the channel grows, and I like it when I'm delivering things that people that want to see. But I've also realized as a content creator and an independent author and whatever, that sometimes I have to put stuff out that is my focus. So things that I found interesting that I need to share. So like I said, I had that video on network recycle bins. I've got a video coming. I think it should be coming. I don't think it's published yet. Talking about how I updated my post-production rendering workflow using Netflix's video multi-method assessment framework, or VMAF tool, to objectively determine how I was making, as I made quality or made adjustments to my output compression in going from standalone software compression to NVIDIA's NVENC encoder and DaVinci Resolve. I made a video talking about that, and I'm going to have a video coming up in the next, I think it's late March, maybe. I have a video coming talking about adding iris rods or rails or whatever you want to call them to a cinema rig, and how I've updated my R5 Mark or R5C video rig to include them, and what's going on with that. And again, I don't expect the either of those to be tremendously interesting to everybody, or all, anybody, or especially, well, everybody, let's just say that. But there's something there that I think is useful. It's something I've spent a lot of time working on as a small content creator. And yes, I have a very specific workflow for me, but my hope in publishing some of that stuff is simply that maybe that information becomes, you can look at that information and take something away from it. So even though you're not going to be maybe using the same production system or post-processing or rendering pipelines or whatever, knowing how to objectively measure the quality of your video so that you can assess how changes are affecting things and how you're balancing things, I think is really useful. So that's where things come from. And In the course of the next year, I do expect to predominantly focus on those three, the R5, R5C, and R5 Mark II tips and tricks, but there will be a lot of interjection of other content, including podcasts. Which I guess brings me to very briefly talking about what my focus or goal is with these podcasts. I started these as a way to talk about stuff that I saw in the camera industry or in cameras or photography or whatever that interested me. They're not a weekly thing. They're not a monthly thing. I've never had a consistent release schedule on podcasts because when there isn't something interesting to talk about for any length of time, I'm not going to do a podcast to just summarize a few unimportant to me at least things. Now, obviously, unimportant to me doesn't mean that it's not important to potentially you or somebody else that's watching, but at some point I have to draw a line in the sand and say, there's a ton of people on YouTube creating content. If I don't think it's really important or that there isn't something really important in the camera news or the lens news or whatever, to me, somebody else can cover it. I'm not going to spend time on stuff just for the sake of spending time on stuff, which also means that since these podcasts tend to be 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour long, I'm not wasting your time because you're not tuning into a podcast or getting a podcast that's 40 minutes of just rambling about some random, maybe inconsequential thing in camera news. So that brings me to the bigger topic of organization. I don't have any. It's not to say that I don't have any organization in my life, but I tried last year for a while to sort of do like an R5 tip, an R5C tip, an R5 Mark II tip, and then kind of like repeat that cycle so that like every week something was coming out that was useful for different people. What I ended up finding with that is I would run out of something for, say, the R5, where I've already got 70 plus episodes of content or of tips for that camera, and I would have a massive pile of stuff for the R5 Mark II because, well, here's all this new stuff that I'm figuring out and trying to share. And how do you, I'm not going to postpone 5, 6 videos on the R5 Mark II just to try to fit in a few more videos on the R5. So there is no real schedule or order to when content or what camera I'm doing content for. There is very much a case of I'm going to put out as much as works in whichever way. And when something for the R5C falls in and, this is something that I need to talk about or it's been requested, or the R5, this is a feature that's, common to the R5 and the R5 Mark II. So I'm going to sort of fit this as an R5 thing and make it expand to the R5 Mark II as well. That kind of thing. In that case, then that stuff will fit in. So if you are one of the people who are an R5C user who have been watching this channel for the R5C content that's been pretty heavy last year, the R5C content may be a little bit lighter this year, but it's not going away at all. It's just going to be a little bit less of a major block in what's done. So that takes me to talking about publishing schedules. I always like it when people tell me what their plans are, like as a consumer of, what am I going to be seeing or what can I expect to see? So my publishing schedule this year is I intend to do 1 video a week, primary video. So that's going to release on Tuesdays, the same days that it always has. They go live 12 o'clock Eastern or 12 o'clock noon, so 12 p.m. Eastern time in the United States. That's just an arbitrary time that I picked for when things made sense for me to go live. Because honestly, or for me to have the videos go live, honestly, it's my audience looking at the metrics is very much a global audience, and kind of as a result, it's hard to say, oh, well, I should do this or that or the next thing. So I picked a time that was convenient for me to publish, and that's just when it is. I don't really, for the content I make, I don't think when I publish it matters that much. I know a lot of people watch it like the next day as I looking at the metrics, or the next day for me looking at the metrics. So, you know, that is what it is. But my plan is to stick with one video a week. Last year, my experiment was to try to get up to 1.5 videos a week. So I'd publish one video one week and 2 videos the next week. And the reality is that burnt me out. I really couldn't manage that for any length of time. 5 months of that, and I was ready to quit YouTube. So there will potentially be more than one video a week, main video. Certainly if there's a podcast, that will not count against the main video. That will be an extra thing. But with the time it takes to do the research and the testing and all of that kind of stuff that goes into my videos, I don't want to just blindly rush content, or try to start rushing content, because besides from getting burnt out last year, I found a lot more little mistakes, nothing detrimental like errors, completely factual errors or something like that, but just a lot more little things that I didn't like I was seeing creep into the production pipeline. And so to keep the quality where I want it and content where I think it needs to be, target video is one a week. Now, the experiment for this year, at least for the first 6 months, is going to be, you may have noticed there have been shorts published more. I'm doing more shorts. The reason for that is another YouTuber programmer I was watching was talking about the fact that, you know, Google or YouTube is putting a lot of effort into promoting shorts and da-da-da-da-da. And he started producing shorts because, hey, if Google's going to spend, or YouTube's going to spend their money to promote your content on a short, as opposed to you having to try to promote it yourself, and as a part of their platform, then it makes sense to leverage that. I don't particularly like shorts. I don't like the vertical video format. I don't watch content on my phone. I don't shoot content on my phone. And when I do, I almost always shoot landscape anyway. I find them kind of obnoxious, but I'm giving them a shot. So my intent with the shorts is to try to distill major points from any of my videos. They are a little addy, if you will. They're a lost leader, or a leader trailer, so to speak, but I am trying to distill major points down to a 1 minute thing, so that one major point in a video. Obviously, the reality is these cameras are complicated, and the more complicated the camera is, the more you have to, there's more to know and understand to get the most out of it. And you can't press that into a 1 minute short. But if I can get a major point in a 1 minute short and draw people to the main video to get the rest of the information, I think that might be worthwhile. So shorts are my experiment for this year. I'm going to keep doing them because they seem to actually so far be doing something. Certainly my monthly subscription count, or subscriber count, is increasing faster now than it was last year when I was trying to do 2 videos a month, which I think is a good thing. So we'll see. That they may stick around indefinitely, or they may die a quiet death. I don't know, but that will be a subject to talk about in July or August, when I have actually like 6 months of actual data and experience looking at that material. Okay, so like you said, that brings me back around to talking real quick about podcasts. And speaking of experiments, because this is one of those things, and I am on the fence about this, but I am considering one of the things that I actually is part of this whole channel adjustment, not channel adjustment, system upgrade and adjustment process that I was talking about with the video on redoing my post-processing workflow. I have figured out a way, or a better way, to do possibly live streaming again. And so I am on the fence. I did for a while, all my podcasts were live streams, and then I stopped doing them as live streams and went back to doing recorded things. And, like I said, I'm on the fence. On one hand, a live stream gives you the opportunity to interact with all of you and potentially answer some questions and bring up or talk about things that I might have missed because of, not being in my, basically because I don't do it, I don't see it, and I don't really notice the gap in the discussion, so to speak. So it would give me the opportunity to address or bring it, cover some of that stuff. On the other hand, live streams, I can't edit, which means if I have to take something out or adjust something or tweak cut something down just because of me looking something up or whatever, it's a live stream that's not getting edited. And so I'm on the fence about that. And plus, like I said, I've looked at my metrics. I have a very global audience. I've got people from all the way from Germany and Austria and Great Britain and Europe, all the way to India that watch this content. And picking a time to put a live stream up that's going to be, viewed. I mean, obviously part of it is it has to be convenient for me, but also part of it is I have to have an audience that's, willing to be there when I'm streaming to tune in to see what I'm talking about or watch it. Now, obviously, YouTube live streams you can watch later. But if I'm going to most people are going to just watch it later and nobody's actually going to tune in when I'm doing it, then the question remains, why not just post it as a pre-recorded video? So I'm on the fence about that one. If you have a thought about whether you'd like to see a live streamed sort of discussion, at least occasionally, throw it in the comments, let me know. The last channel thing that I wanted to talk about is channel memberships. I haven't set them up yet. I haven't started a Patreon account for the channel or channel memberships on YouTube. And a large part of that is I don't know what to offer or what I want to offer as part of the membership. I don't particularly like just saying, join the channel and pay me some, $2 a month or whatever the minimum channel membership is. And obviously you're going to get the content that I'm producing. And probably channel members at a minimum would get early access to the content. So they'd be able to see it basically as soon as I upload it. And I know one of the things YouTube offers as a benefit is priority discussion or priority question support or response, which is certainly something that I would absolutely be doing for channel members. So channel members would get priority in terms of, even if it wasn't a YouTube specific thing, but people who are, essentially paying me to help them understand their camera, however you want to look at it, would certainly get priority in terms of answering questions that they had about how to do something or about some of the videos that I put up. That said, I haven't decided what and how I want to do with that yet. I do want to move on that this year, probably in the next couple of months. I was hoping to have it done by the first of the year, but I ran into, again, like I said, trying to figure out what to offer as a benefit that people would be interested in, or that I felt was a equitable benefit for asking, for you to hand over some of your hard-earned money. So that is something that I will be looking at going on for the rest of this year. So with the state of the channel out of the way, or my plans for the channel out of the way, I want to get on to the second topic that I mentioned, which is talking about NVIDIA's newest video cards, the RTX 5000 series, and the impact for content creators that those cards are going to or are bringing. So this is something I have not seen talked about in any review anybody has done for the NVIDIA RTX 5000 series cards, which, of course, they're expensive. Let's not beat around the bush. I don't have a 5000 series card as much as I would like one. They are expensive. They are hard to get because they're in limited availability, brand new on the market, etc., etc., etc. But most people who are doing reviews of RTX 5000, the 5090, 5080, 5070, 5070 Ti, etc., they're gaming channels. Which there's nothing wrong with that. I like to play a game every now and then, and gaming performance is a big thing that those cards and people and all of that is sort of focused on. They will do content creation benchmarks, but they won't talk about one thing that I think is absolutely critical if you are a video content creator, especially if you are working in the sort of mid-tier of the video market. So you are not so far up the production pipeline that you shoot everything in RAW, and you are not so far down the production pipeline that you shoot everything on a webcam or your iPhone and you don't care and you don't even understand what chroma subsampling is. Like right in the middle. And the big deal here is that the hardware encoder and decoder in the RTX 5000 series cards now supports 422 chroma subsampling. So NVIDIA has joined rarefied air with this. Previously, only Intel's GPUs or Intel's QuickSync hardware decoders, which was found in their ARC cards and in their 13th, 14th, 12th, 13th. I don't remember exactly when it was added, when the functionality for 422 chroma subsampling was added to Intel's GPUs, but it was, I think, the 12th generation CPU that had built-in video hardware gained this functionality. And in fact, the whole reason, or the whole ability to decode 422 chroma subsampled video in hardware on your computer, or on my computer, is a big part of the reason that I have an Intel i9-14900K in my current workstation instead of an AMD Ryzen 9 something or other. Even though in gaming tests and compute benchmarks and a whole lot of other things, the AMD chips are marginally faster or significantly faster, depending on what chip and what benchmark and how you're comparing things and so forth. But AMD GPUs cannot decode 422 chroma subsampled video. At least I have not found anything anywhere by, through any tool or capability that indicates that they can. The same is actually true for Apple GPUs. The Apple Silicon processors, the M1, M2, M3, M4, etc., they can do 422 chroma subsampling when you are doing ProRes compression or ProRes playback in hardware, but for AVC, HEVC, and AV1, as far as I know, they can't do 422 chroma subsampling. So up until basically January of this year, the release of the Blackwell 5000 series NVIDIA cards, if you wanted hardware decompression or compression of 422 chroma subsampled video in either AVC or HEVC, or now AV1, your only choice was Intel. And that was a big factor in shaping the way I put my workstation together. Well, now you can do it with an RTX video card, an NVIDIA RTX video card, RTX 5000 series video card, which means that you can put you can go with any processor, whether you're talking AMD Ryzen, Threadripper, EPYC, Intel, the Core Ultra, Xeon, it doesn't matter. They can do it. Now, I don't know what the state is right now for software support. I haven't seen anything specifically from Blackmagic Design yet for DaVinci Resolve. Premiere Pro, Premiere users always got the short end of the stick because Premiere Pro would not... if you had an Intel GPU and an AMD GPU, it would not send 422 video that the Intel GPU could decode to the Intel GPU to decode it. It would just do it in software. Presumably, since this is going to be available in AMD 5000 or NVIDIA 5000 series GPUs, Premiere Pro, once updated, will be able to send 422 chroma subsampled video to the GPU to be processed, hardware decoded. So, of course, the advantage of hardware decode and encode is lower power consumption, faster ability for the computer to decode. It's not using up CPU time. It's real time. Then your CPU can be used for doing other color correction, rendering effects, that kind of thing. So if you are, to sort of wrap up this part of the discussion, if you are looking for a GPU and you are a mid-tier or, a content creator who works with 422 chroma subsampled AVC or HEVC video, which that's a lot of what you're getting out of Canon mirrorless cameras, Sony mirrorless cameras, the lower end of Canon cinema cameras, XF AVC and XF HEVC do 422 chroma subsampling. It's probably what you want to be shooting in if you are in that middle, sort of lower middle tier of content creation or video production, video capture. AMD or Nvidia Blackwell 5000 series RTX GPUs will now decode that and encode that in hardware in the GPU. So it's a pretty big deal. And it's probably worth, like I said, if you're a content creator, considering those cards. Which brings me to the last topic that I wanted to bring up or talk about in this episode of the podcast, which is a thought that has been sitting on my possible to-do list, and I'm up in the air about how much or how I want to do it, or whether I want to do it, or what I want to do with it. But last year I picked up a Blackmagic Design Decklink 4K recorder capture card. And the 4K recorder can record at up to 4K resolution at up to 10-bit uncompressed 422 chroma subsampling. And basically that is as close to the 12-bit uncompressed output that I can get from a Canon camera. And I have been thinking about the question, as I mentioned earlier, using the Netflix VMAF tool to potentially look at what kind of compression quality we get with the hardware encoder in Canon cameras. Partly this is just a curiosity thing to me, but I'm throwing this out there and soliciting some discussion, feedback, thoughts. Because on the one hand, I think I can test this and get a reasonable or meaningful, objective sort of quality number out of it. On the other hand, I don't know what we could do about it if it's bad. And I don't know if knowing is a good thing if there's nothing I can do or nothing we can do to correct it or do better if it doesn't turn out to be acceptable or reasonable or okay. So there's a bit of a, like, is it worth knowing just to know, or is it better to not know? And, you look at the video. I mean, I look at the video that comes out of my camera and I think it looks perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with it at all. But that goes, if I knew that it was significantly worse, how would that impact my thought process and what I'm doing and so forth on that? Now, I want to talk a little bit about the testing challenges of this. So I can record uncompressed or losslessly compressed 422 and 444 video at up to 10-bit using that Blackmagic Design card. My understanding is the R5 can output up to 12-bit on the HDMI output. And I'm also a little unclear on the Blackmagic card, because some places it says it can do 12-bit, but it implies that's only at 1080, not 4K. Other places it implies that it can only do 10-bit, not 12-bit. I'm not 100% certain on that. But the reason that this opens the door to that is that recording an uncompressed HDMI feed and comparing it to the compressed camera feed means that I have all the processing that the camera is doing being done in both places. So anytime you objectively compare using PSNR, SSIM, and VMAF, any two video feeds, the feeds have to be identical. If I, for example, shoot RAW and a proxy of RAW in, a compressed format, depending on how I decode or process that RAW, it's going to change the quality. And we've seen this. Blackmagic Design and Canon themselves, at least in the past, I don't have Premiere Pro anymore, or I don't have Premiere Pro, so I don't know for certain anymore. But at least as of a couple of years ago, Blackmagic Design and Canon produced much sharper, higher quality, lower noise, better dynamic range too, I think, RAW outputs from Canon's RAW format than Premiere Pro did. And, this came up in a video where a guy was complaining about how bad the RAW was on his C300 Mark III, and people pointed out, you're using Premiere Pro, try it in DaVinci Resolve. He did that, and all of a sudden the RAW files were significantly higher quality, because in the case of RAW, as even with still file RAW, how that file is processed, how it's debayered, how it's corrected for white balance, and all of that, it matters in terms of quality. So on top of that, RAW in video, whether you're talking about Canon's C-RAW or Cinema RAW Lite or whatever they're calling it these days, or ProRes RAW, are both lossy compressed formats. They're throwing information away to compress the raw data and make it smaller. Otherwise, they would just be absolutely massive. So you're not necessarily comparing, if you're comparing raw to not raw, let's just say AVC, then you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples or what the camera can do to what it's outputting. You're comparing two lossily compressed formats, one that might have a bit more data, one that might have a bit less. But one of the problems with all of this in terms of comparing lossy stuff is how it's what and how it's throwing away information. They all throw information away to make the files smaller. They all use different algorithms, and they're all going to be, what they do is all going to be contingent on the footage that you're compressing. And that raises one of the other challenges for this whole process is, what exactly do you choose to use as a reference or test for this kind of shooting? Do I shoot a landscape or a scene outside, or do I shoot my normal talking head stuff, or do I absolutely try to stress the camera to its max and shoot, say, confetti falling? Because all of those are going to put significantly different burdens or demands on how the image information is compressed, and whether the bit rate's going to be acceptable, how the codecs or how the compression hardware may or may not work, the motion detection, which is a big part of what all of this is doing internally, how that handles things. And that sort of makes this a vastly bigger than just, we're going to shoot one or two simple tests and be done with it. So that brings me back to the question that prompts the why I'm sort of on the fence about even trying to tackle this, which is, what do we even get out of this? So we know that the camera produces a video that's some percentage of what its uncompressed production or capabilities are. which immediately means that some people are going to completely just rush off and try to record uncompressed video somehow because compression bad or whatever. I also anticipate that if it's not phenomenal, there's going to be a huge slew of people complaining about how Canon's engineers are shit and blah, blah, blah. And, this objective test that they didn't fully probably understand the limitations of. And, there's a lot in terms of trying to even just talk and communicate those, which I don't really know if I want to deal with, in the comments or read or look at. And suppose we compare, what do we compare it to? The R5, R5C, and R5 Mark II all use the same compression hardware. They all have digic X processors in them. The compression hardware is built into the digic X processor. There's not really going to be an appreciable difference in between them. I don't have an R1 or an R3. The R3 might be an interesting thing to look at, in part because it has higher bit rates than either the R5 or the R1 for the video for its compressed video. And I don't have something running the digic DV processors, so I don't have a C80 or a C400 or a C70. And to be able to run the tests like on there and see, well, we'll do the cinema cameras, the digic DV cameras, do they have better compression hardware in them for some reason, or are they using the same hardware that Canon uses in all their other cameras? And then I'm a Canon guy, and I would love to have, I've said this before, I would love to have a full Nikon and a full Sony platform, possibly even a Fuji and a Panasonic platform. But this channel doesn't make nearly enough money to support me having 4 or 5 simultaneous platforms just for testing purposes. And I shoot with what I find works best for me. I've talked about this in a lot of cases in videos talking about like just cameras in general. The quality differences between different brands are not significant enough anymore and haven't been for many years to warrant fighting with a user interface that you don't just get along with. I get along with Canon's user interface. Their cameras are built the way my brain is wired. And this is not necessarily like, an indictment of Sony or Nikon or Panasonic or whatever. Everybody's brain's wired a little bit differently, and everybody is going to get along with cameras a little bit differently. And so for me, it happens to be that Canon lines up to where I don't think about using the camera. I just use it. And this was true even when I picked up like my first Canon camera. I wasn't thinking about, the manual said to do this or this control did this. I just started using it, and the dials that I was turning were the dials that were doing what I expected the dial to do. Yeah, I know it's weird, but that's just the way it was for Canon's user interface and me. So while this opens doors to possibly talk about how other brands perform, because keep in mind, just because 2 cameras from different brands both encode at a target bit rate of, say, 35 megabits per second, doesn't mean that video quality is going to be identical, or that the compression, the losses due to compression are going to be identical. So that's the part where I also say in the comments, let me know your thoughts. Is this something that you might be interested in seeing? Is this something that, you have thought about doing? And if you have, what was your thoughts on how you were going to, or how you would thought about approaching this? I'm not even going to make I might or might not or whatever do this. I don't know. I was real gung-ho for about a month last year when I first got the card about, I'm going to do this and I'm going to see. And then the more I thought about it, the more I started going, I don't know if I want to know. I like being able to just shoot and use the camera and not like have it in the back of my head, I'm giving up so much of this or that. So I'd like to at least hear some thoughts on this. And with that said, I'm going to wrap this podcast up. That said, I hope you found this useful, or at least interesting. If you did, let me know by hitting that like button. If this kind of thing seems like it might be your kind of thing, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Finally, if you'd like to help and support this channel, you can help us for free by liking this video, sharing it with your friends on a social media platform of your choice, and leaving a comment with your experiences. Likewise, you can support us directly by hitting that thanks button or buying yourself something you've always wanted from one of the affiliate links in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.